amigos? Hey, check it out. We're in the van, man, and we're just digging down the road. Oh, and by the way, like, did I ever say that there's like 2 words in the English language that you have to say man after saying these words? And one of them is can. For example, hey, I gotta go to the can, man, you know, or use the can. And the other one is van. So anyway, we're in the van, man. Ain't that right?
That's right.
Yep. And we're going to Hellfighters just because, well, I wonder if by chance in their little junk department in the back they might have some parts for the Sportster that I'm putting together. And I still don't know what to call this project. Maybe call it Project Redemption. What do you think?
I'm not gonna go there.
Yeah, there's a story behind that. I have to tell you about it later. But anyway, we figured we might take you guys along. We haven't been to Hellfighters in a while, and I know you guys haven't seen it in a while. So I need to drive with 2 hands now, and so I'm just going to have to hand you off to the missus. And we're here. It seemed like it took almost 40 forevers because we didn't take the interstate. We took all back roads. We kept it under 65, and it was pretty comfortable. What do you think?
Yep, it felt like a road trip.
Yeah, pretty cool. So we're gonna get in here and see what they've got. Well, there is a disadvantage, some disadvantage to riding old things, is that when you come to a bike shop where most of the parts consist of takeoff parts from wrecked motorcycles, usually it's, you know, a modern bike. So most of this stuff is modern. I have old stuff and I can't even seem to find a simple brake front master cylinder for that motorcycle, you know, as far as what I'm going to use. Anyway. That piston looks like it's seen better days too. Yeah. Oh, got dirt. Oh, that's a big can. Obviously had bit the dust because those stinking INA bearings, apparently this one met a bad one. See how bad that is, all scored up like that? That's what happens when those INA bearings go out. They tear your cam up, they tear your motor up. This really ought to be in the junk pile, like hanging from the roof for decoration. I mean, that's no slight against this place. You know, all this stuff, it's hard to catch everything, you know. Also, looking at those lobes, this is a hot can. Somebody was really getting down on it when that happened.
What are we looking for?
Well, since I can't find any exhaust, I can't find a master cylinder here. I do need a pinch bolt for that front end, you know, so it's got to be here, right? I mean, just an Allen bolt, I think it's a 5/16, yay long. Got to find it. Okay, I think that's it. So let's go find a front end that we could stick this in to make sure. All right, here we go. Here we go. Let's see. Yes, that's what we want.
Just one?
Just one.
Awesome.
Yep. That's what we want. Okay, it wasn't a complete loss. I found a new air filter. Well, it's not new, it was obviously used, but it's a K&N, so it's reusable. You can wash this. And this is the kind of air filter that I'm going to use in Redemption project. So found a bolt and an air filter. And this is pretty old. They don't make these anymore. The one I have right now is paper like this, and it's pretty beat up. Not this one, but the one at the house. But this will do. And I had to come take a look to see if this thing was still here. This is a 1982 or 81 Super Glide. I have a feeling this thing will be here for a long time because check it out. Looking at like the Kelly Blue Book or NADA, it would be only worth that much if it was all original. But according to the VIN number, it is a 1980 FXE Super Glide. But got Fat Bob tanks, which is not stock. It's got a police style seat on it, hard bags, oil tank, it's not quite original. And it's got an FLH front end. Freaking awesome bike, but it's obviously been thrown together. So I would love to take it home, but not for that price.
All right.
Wasn't a wasted trip. I mean, I got a filter that I needed anyway, and I got that pinch bolt. So I guess the next order of business, back at the garage. That's the next order of business, and it happens to be several days later too. But since the last video, I've done a little bit more to the redemption bike, and I've added a wheel to it. I got this really ugly, nasty red lipstick looking fender on here, but but the only reason why I swapped it out and got that blue one off of there is because I just want it to be, you know, period correct of what it is. And no doubt this is not going to stay this lipstick red looking color. This is going to get painted. The whole bike's going to get painted eventually. What color? Not sure. And on top of keeping it period correct, this is the taillight that I had that I was going to use. Well, see these little prongs right there? They're barely threaded. They take a specialty kind of nut. But that fender is not compatible with this taillight because it's got a big gaping hole right there. So nothing for the prongs to go through to put nuts on the other side. That's also the reason I did that. But I found this one on eBay for a good price. No doubt it was a good price because, I mean, that hideous color. It came with a license plate bracket, which is pretty cool, and a tail light, and I hooked some juice to the tail light, and the tail light works. The brake light and the running light works. This is another thing I did. The battery box, this is the original battery box, and I actually have a live battery in there. I didn't know it still worked. It's a drag specialty battery that I bought like 3 or 4 years ago and never used it. But I put a multimeter on it and it's got 12 volts on it, so cool. I could use it to test out lights. And with that air filter that I picked up at Hellfighters, I was able to piece together my old air breather. Check it out. And the filter's in there. So that'll go up here like that. I know. It's stock, right? It's not cool looking. Who cares? I'm putting it on there because I happen to like this thing anyway. Got my controls set up, my mid controls for the brake. Got a brake caliper set up and bracket, which is period correct. I couldn't use the brakes that I have because they come off of an 02, and apparently there is a little difference in variations of the frames between 1986 through 90 to on into 03. So the rear brake caliper wasn't going to work for me, neither was the bracket. But I had to get this, and so this is all set up. Like I said, this is just mocked up in here. What else have I done? Oh yeah, I got some motor mounts on here. Found my motor mounts that I had in my pile. Got my front wheel put on. Got a brake disc on here, brake caliper. I still have to figure out what to do about the brake line scenario. I thought I was going to be able to use my original rear brake line, but apparently it is shot. It will not accept any fluid through it, you know, because the inside of the hose is just deteriorated and caused some obstruction. That's what happens when those lines get some age on them. So I guess I'm going to have to take some measurements of that line and anyway, do some kind of substitute type scenario. I don't know what you call them, but you know, you got to buy the fittings separately, you know, and all that stuff. What else have I done? Oh yeah, I got my intake manifold put in. But some of you might be wondering, why in the world would I want to make this thing a stock motorcycle and not bob it or chop it or make it into a hardtail? Well, that has everything to do with why I call it the redemption bike. Well, yeah, I guess it is called the redemption bike because I keep saying that. So it's kind of a long story. So if you got time to, you know, listen up. Most of you who have been, oh man, it's foggy. This isn't gonna work. Let me see if I can get away from this fog. Almost wiped out too. Golly, that would have sucked. At least the roads are slick. Come on, find first. Boy, how embarrassing can that be, huh? Maybe the further north I go, the less moisture there will be in the air since the Gulf is south of here. Okay, let's try this again. Didn't start looking foggy until I got just a few 100 yards south of the house. Oh yeah, I got moisture on the camera. Golly, I had to ride over 30 miles north just to get away from that damp air. That makes sense. The further north you go, the further away from the Gulf, the more dry the air is going to be. Okay. So those of you who have been around for like 40 forevers kind of know the history of this motorcycle. I'll try to make this story short and sweet to the best way I can remember it. Back in 2015, I went into the motorcycle shop. This is back when I had my 103 twin cam still. I went into Scooters to get a back tire for my Softail, and I ended up leaving with a motorcycle instead. Imagine that. Which happened to be the Sportster that this thing came from before it ever got chopped. Okay? And I originally bought it for the missus. It was going to be her motorcycle. She was going to learn to ride on it. Anyway, I noticed some problems with that motorcycle, and I realized that it needed some serious work done to it. Like, it had problems shifting. It was kind of sketchy. You know, you could downshift, but the lever wouldn't come back up by itself. You had to fish it up with your toe. And then I found out later on what was really wrong with it. So then we came across another motorcycle, another Sportster, a newer one, an 03, and it was in better shape mechanically. We decided that it would be better for her to learn on that motorcycle because mechanically it's in better shape. And so we did that. We bought that bike, and then during conversation, when we brought that newer bike home, she decided that the initial bike that I bought for her was going to be mine. I agreed to that, of course. Well, she also told me this though: if I'm going to keep it, I need to leave it alone because we're going to have problems. In other words, her words was, do not make it a chopper. I didn't say yes ma'am or no ma'am on that. I just listened. Well, obviously I didn't listen because look what I'm riding. As I was riding the motorcycle, you know, playing around with it, I noticed it wouldn't stop leaking oil. On further investigation, I noticed that the cases had been broken before. I mean, they were cracked. And somebody had welded them up but did a terrible job. So it wasn't getting a very good seal on the countershaft, we call it countershaft bearing housing. So in other words, that engine was crap. It needed new cases. So I decided to pull the engine out of it. And as I was looking at that rolling chassis, I decided to, you know what? I ended up just, well, here's my chance if I'm ever going to do this. Chop that thing in half. Well, needless to say, there was nothing sneaky about doing that. In fact, the missus walked into the garage in the middle of me cutting that frame in half, and that busted me right off the bat. But during that build, what she said was going to happen happened. We had issues off and on. But she likes the bike now. She likes to ride on it. She can dig it. But later on, we never got around to getting her to learn how to ride that other Sportster. Just sitting around in the garage collecting dust. And something came up where we ended up selling it. After the bike was sold, several weeks later, or many months later, or a year later, I don't remember, we got into a little disagreement about something that had to do with the motorcycle, and she made the mention that the Tramp, before I chopped it, it was her bike anyway, or something like that. Made some kind of reference to that being her bike. I decided not to contradict what she said. So, anyway, but because that is true, every time I would see a picture, because I still got pictures of the Sportster before it got chopped, every time I see a picture of it, you know, I have just a tad bit of remorse. Not really remorse, but it just kind of a little bit of feeling of sadness comes on me. You know, there it was, never to be seen again. You know, and I think about the fact that, yeah, it originally was her bike, even though we agreed it was going to be my bike. But anyway, it is what it is. So anyway, I ended up building the first engine to this motorcycle out of the original engine. You know, it's just a 4-speed Evo 883, and I decided I wanted something with another gear in it, so I ended up buying an 02 Sportster, and I pulled that engine out and I stuck it in this bike. And you guys know the history on that, you know, and now it's got a new top end on it since I did all of that, and it runs like a top. That other Evo Sportster engine has been sitting on my concrete floor in my garage for about, I don't know, 5 years now, I want to say, and hasn't been ran. Fast forward a bit, I came across a deal on a motorcycle frame on eBay that has a title, and it happens to be a 1990 frame. Well, shoot, that's a 1990 engine sitting there, so I bought it. And here recently, as I began to start putting things together, and I'm finding all kinds of parts, original parts to the original Sportster that will work on it, I would get really excited about it, you know? I mean, it's like I feel a sense of joy come over me. And I guess it's like this. Every time I find an original part for that motorcycle and I put it on the bike, I literally feel like I'm righting my wrong, you know, like I'm making a correction. You know, it's like my missus' motorcycle coming back from the dead. In other words, it's like it's a redemption, it seems like. And I don't know. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, there's some sentimentality to it, if that's even a word. I'm just real thrilled to be able to build this bike and try to make it as close to what it was before it got chopped. I mean, I don't have the original handlebars anymore, and there's a few other things I don't have anymore. Like, that's not the original gas tank, but it's close. It's a 3-gallon tank. The original tank was a 2.2 gallon tank, but I think this one looks good with that 3.1 gallon tank, that King Sportster tank that is. So that's why I'm not making it a chopper. That's why it's not going to be a bobber. It's going to be as close to like a stock bike as I can get it. You know, I know some parts are hard to find. I know one thing that's not going to be stock about it is going to be the ignition, because I'm really not that big of a whiz on electrical. I can make it spark and I can get lights to work, but as far as having the original wiring schematic, nah, I ain't going to do that. But yeah, that's it. That's why it's not a chopper. It's going to be a regular Sportster, and if my missus wants to ride it, she can ride it. It's going to be just as much her bike. Actually, I feel like it's more like her bike anyway. But that's what I'm doing. It's just because I want to. That's my explanation as to why I'm building a stock Sportster and not making a chopper. I mean, I understand somebody wanting to build a stock bike like a 70-something FLH and making it stock, but who in the world cares that much about an Evo Sportster 883 from the era of 1986 to 03? I mean, who the heck takes one of those and builds a stock Sportster? Anyway, that's that. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, awesome. If you didn't, hit that like button anyway. All that jargon. And thank you, my patrons who have been with me so far. And as always, guys, you guys keep the riverside down. You be good to yourselves. Thanks a lot.